Happy Huntings, horror fans, and welcome to this week's episode of Megan's Murder Movies. I'm your host, Megan, and this week we are breaking down the cult classic Jennifer's Body. I am so excited to get into this one. It's a wonderfully fresh film, and it could have done so much better if it was marketed right. It was marketed toward a male audience, which was the first mistake. It's a great story about female empowerment, friendship, and devotion. There's also two possible true crime stories that this may have been inspired by, which I might do into a mini episode, so stay tuned for that. But without further ado, let's jump into a summary. When a demon takes possession of her, high school hottie Jennifer, played by Megan Fox, turns a hungry eye on guys who never stood a chance with her before. While evil Jennifer satisfies her appetite for human flesh with the school's male population, her nerdy friend Needy, played by Amanda Seyfried, learns what's happening and vows to put an end to the carnage. So now that we've got a summary, let's jump into a cast breakdown. So the movie was actually directed by Karen Kusama, and she's an American filmmaker. She made her directorial and writing feature film debut with the sports drama Girl Fight in 2000, for which she received a nomination for the Independent Spirit Award for Best First Feature. She went on to direct a science fiction film, and then she also went on to direct the film Jennifer's Body. Kusama also directed the horror film The Invitation in 2015, a segment in the all-female horror anthology film Double X in 2017, and the Nicole Kidman starring crime thriller film Destroyer in 2018. So Jennifer's Body was written by Diablo Cody, who's an American writer and producer. She gained recognition for her candid blog and subsequent memoir Candy Girl, A Year in the Life of an Unlikely Stripper in 2005. She also received critical acclaim for her screenwriting film debut Juno, winning the Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay. She won a BAFTA Award for Best Original Screenplay and the Independent Spirit Award for Best First Screenplay, and then she also won a Writers Guild of America Award for Best Original Screenplay. So Juno kind of put her on the map. Cody created, wrote, and produced the Showtime comedy drama United States of Terra, which ran from 2009 to 2011. She also wrote and produced and made her directorial debut with the comedy drama film Paradise in 2013. Cody also, helped write and produce the horror film Jennifer's Body and the comedy drama film Young Adult, which earned her a second nomination for the Writers Guild of America Award for Best Original Screenplay. And then she also did the musical comedy film Ricky and the Flash in 2015 and the comedy drama film Tully in 2018. Cody has won a Tony Award for Best Book of a Musical for Jagged Little Pill, her first musical theater undertaking, and she's been a member of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences in the Writers Branch since 2008. So Diablo Cody, super notable, has done a ton of stuff. Everything that she kind of has her name on is amazing, and Jennifer's Body is, not an exception to that list. So next we'll get into the cast. So Megan Fox plays Jennifer Check. Megan is an American actress and model. She's made multiple appearances in major film franchises, including the Transformers franchise, as well as numerous magazines such as Maxim and Rolling Stone. She's the recipient of several awards, including 2 Scream Awards and 14 Choice Awards. Fox made her acting debut in the family film Holiday in the Sun in 2001. And then she was also in Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen in 2004. She was in the ABC sitcom Hope and Faith from 2004 to 2006. Her breakout role was that of Michaela Baines in the blockbuster film Transformers in 2007, which she reprised in its sequel Transformers Revenge of the Fallen in 2009. She also starred as April O'Neil in the superhero action film Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and its sequel Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows. She also starred as Reagan Lucas in the 5th and 6th seasons of the Fox sitcom New Girl. So that's a little bit about Megan. Next we'll go to our other main character, Anita, or Needy Liznicki, who is played by Amanda Seyfried. So Amanda's an American actress. She was born and raised in Pennsylvania and began modeling at the age of 11 and ventured into acting at the age of 15 with recurring roles as Lucy Montgomery on ABC soap opera As the World Turns and Jodie Stanford on ABC soap opera On My Children. She came to prominence following her feature film debut in the teen comedy Mean Girls, where she plays Karen Smith. And she also played a recurring role as Lily Kane on the UPN television series Veronica Mars. She was in the HBO series Big Love. She's appeared in a number of successful films, including Mamma Mia, the sequel Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again, Dear John, Letters to Juliet, Red Riding Hood, In Time, Les Miserables, A Million Ways to Die in the West, Ted 2, First Reformed, and then in 2022, Time Magazine named her one of the 100 most influential people in the world. She's been in tons of stuff. If you don't recognize her, I would be shocked. She's been in so many different things and has had so many different roles. So definitely go check her out if you haven't, but I'm sure you recognize her. Next, we have Nikolai Wolf, who is played by Adam Brody. Adam is an American actor, writer, and musician and producer. He's well known for his role as Seth Cohen on the Fox television series The O.C. He's been in the films Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Thank You for Smoking, In the Land of Women, Jennifer's Body, Cop Out, Scream 4, Lovelace, Life Partners, Sleeping with Other People, Shazam, Ready or Not, The Kid Detective, and The Startup. So kind of a fun fact about him was that the filmmakers had hoped to cast an actual rock musician to portray Nikolai Wolf. They looked at Pete Wentz and Joel Madden, and then they also considered Chad Michael Murray. They also talked about possibly having Johnny Simmons play Nikolai, but then they ended up casting Brody instead, but he didn't perform his own vocals in the film. He said that my singing voice was still going through puberty. They gave me a singing lesson or two, and it's not the worst thing in the world, but it's not anything anyone would choose to hear, so his vocals were provided by Ryan Levine, who also played another member of the band in the movie. So next we'll move on to Johnny Simmons, who instead of being cast as Nikolai, he was cast as Chip Dove. So Johnny Simmons is an American actor. He's known for his role as Dylan Baxter in Evan Almighty, Young Neil in Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, Brad Hayes in The Perks of Being a Wallflower, serial killer Adam Balloon Man Kemper in Elementary, Peter in The Late Bloomer, and Shane in Girl Boss. Next, we'll move on to J.K. Simmons, who plays Mr. Wroblewski. He's an American actor considered one of the most prolific and well-established character actors of his generation. I'm sure you recognize him, even though in this film they put him in a very odd wig, and he has like a hook for a hand. I don't really know. It's very interesting for this like weird science teacher. That's kind of the character he plays, but I love J.K. Simmons, and so am never mad about seeing him on screen. His film roles include J. Jonah Jameson in the Spider-Man trilogy. I need more pictures of Spider-Man. I think that's what a lot of people know him from. He was also in Thank You for Smoking. He was in Juno. He starred opposite Miles Teller in Whiplash, which he won an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor for. He was in La La Land, The Justice League, Batgirl. He's been in so many things, and he was also in the Spider-Man Far From Home, Spider-Man No Way Home. He's been in the Spider-Man animated series. He's in Venom. He's been in so many things. He was in Defending Jacob and The Stand. He was in Gravity Falls. He voiced a character in that. He's in a ton of voice acting as well. Zootopia, Klaus, Kung Fu Panda 3, Legend of Korra, tons of stuff. He's actually been the voice of the Yellow M&M since 1996, and I love the Yellow M&M, so that made me really happy to see, because I actually didn't know that. That was something that I learned doing a deeper dive on him. But yeah, J.K. Simmons has been in so much, and his character in Jennifer's Body is very interesting. Next, we'll move on to Colin Gray. Colin Gray is played by Kyle Gallner. Kyle's an American actor, and he's known for his portrayal of Cassidy Beaver Casablancas in the television series Veronica Mars. He was in Smallville. He was in CSI. He's been in CSI New York, and he was a lead role as Hazel Farrell in the drama series Outsiders. He's also known for his roles in the horror films The Haunting in Connecticut, of course Jennifer's Body, American Sniper, and then the Nightmare on Elm Street remake that they did, which he's very good in all of them, and he's a really good horror actor. That's kind of mostly where I've known him from, is from the recent Nightmare on Elm Street and then A Haunting in Connecticut. And then Jennifer's Body, he plays this absolutely lovely stereotypical emo boy from the early 2000s, which I always had a crush on growing up. So rewatching this, I was like, oh, I love Colin. I love Colin so much. He's got the lip ring and the all the bracelets and the nail polish, and I just love him so much. And then another cool one, small character, but Chris Pratt plays Officer Roman Duda. So Chris, of course, is an American actor known for starring in television as well as action and animated films. He, is most notably known for playing Andy Dwyer in Parks and Recreation, and then he's also, of course, known for his role in Guardians of the Galaxy and Avengers as Star-Lord. He's also been in Moneyball, The 5-Year Engagement, Movie 43, Zero Dark 30, Delivery Man, and Her. And then now he's kind of just hanging out in the Jurassic World franchise as well as the Marvel franchise. And in 2015, Time Magazine named him one of the most 100 influential people. And actually, most recently, he is set to voice Mario in Nintendo and Illumination's Untitled Mario film. So kind of curious to see what his Mario is going to sound like. But that's kind of all of the main cast that I'm going to talk about. There's a lot of small side characters, but they're only in a scene here or a scene there. So I kind of just talked about the main ones that get referenced a lot or that we see a lot on the screen. So now that we've got a cast breakdown, let's dive into some fun facts. So Blake Lively was actually the first pick to play Jennifer. Lively almost took a major turn from her usual role to play one that would be a bit darker. She was considering the role, but she actually turned it down due to filming conflicts with Gossip Girl, so that didn't end up going through. So then director Karen Kusama actually didn't know who Megan Fox was. For any film to be a success, the casting directors have to find the best talent to portray the characters on screen. And so producers were looking for a popular young actress. And when Lively turned out the role, the casting director was like, we should get Megan Fox, because at the time she had gained a lot of notoriety and popularity due to the Transformers movie. And Karen was like, I don't know who she is. When they brought her, when the casting director was like, well, what about Megan Fox? She was like, I'm not sure. I don't know her. She was doing an interview, and I guess she had said that Megan was attached when I read the script, and I actually knew nothing about her. I had not seen Transformers in the theater and had chosen, not to. She was like, I didn't, it wasn't an interest of mine to go see that movie. But once Megan Fox read the script, she was super into it and really wanted it. So then Megan Fox actually dropped a bunch of weight for the role. She dropped down to 97 pounds to prepare for the role, which was she's a full-grown woman at that time. That's very, very small. And I guess she also stayed out of the sun for 3 months, I think it was, before filming, so that she could be that super, super pale look. So definitely did what she could to make the role believable, but definitely glad that she is hopefully healthier, because I can't imagine 97 pounds being healthy for a lady in their 20s. And I guess the script was actually supposed to be much darker. The original focus of Jennifer's body leaned more toward the horror genre. The plot itself, surrounding a teen girl being possessed by a demon, could have been expected to take the scarier route similar to The Exorcist. However, Diablo Cody found that the more time she invested in the script, the more the plot shifted into a new kind of direction. In an interview with Coming Soon, she said, "When I first set out to write this, I intended to write something very dark, very brooding, a traditional slasher movie. And then I realized about a third of the way into the process, I was incapable of doing that because the humor just kept sneaking in. I have a macabre sense of humor." So with the newly found humor in the plot, she then included a more dark comedy element into kind of the vibe of the film. So there's this really iconic scene, if you've not seen the film itself, kind of for the promotions. There's a specific scene between the girls, Jennifer and Needy, where they kind of make out. I mean, not kind of, they do make out. And it wasn't a publicity stunt. So when recalling the original promotion for the movie, many audiences may remember the kissing scene between Jennifer and Needy being featured. Although the studio felt the need to promote this scene to entice audiences to see the movie, typically male, the scene itself held more meaning. As reported by The Frisky, Cody had no intentions for the scene to be a publicity stunt. She stated, "It was intended to be something profound and meaningful to me and to Karen. There's a physical energy between the girls, which is kind of authentic, because I know when I was a teenage girl, the friendship that I had with other girls was almost romantic. They were so intense. I wanted to capture that heightened feeling you get as an adolescent when you don't really feel as grown up." So then there's another really kind of big scene I don't know if it's a big scene, but I guess an iconic or memorable scene from the film is when Jennifer first gets possessed and she goes to Needy's house and she throws up all of this black vomit or this black sludge. The production team of Jennifer's Body decided to take a different route for their special effects to transform Fox into a man-eating demon. Their team decided to move away from CGI effects and incorporate more tactile sources for their effects. For example, the black vomit scene utilized chocolate syrup. We did a few takes where we would just do this scream and sort of puke Hershey's chocolate syrup, and then special effects did a rig thing that clamped onto my ears, and you revisit it in the pool scene. She further details that in the device clips on, and it goes around the back of my ears, and I bite down on the side of my face, and it like projectiles. It's like a tube. So it's kind of cool how they did the effects instead of just like CGIing everything, and I feel like chocolate syrup's definitely not the worst thing to have, chilling out. I've heard, a lot of different things that they use for vomit, like in The Exorcist, they use, I think it was like pea soup or something, and that just seems terrible to have in or around your mouth for multiple takes and things like that. Another interesting fun fact is that the film was made into a musical, so over the years, Jennifer's Body has gained in popularity with fans, bringing it to an admirable cult status. The dark humor, witty dialogue, and female-driven cast has led the film to new audiences and future fans. In particular, the movie found a new life on Broadway. The film has been made into an authorized musical, aptly titled Jennifer's Body, the Unauthorized Musical from Hell. The musical, which began its run back in March of 2018, the cast included Pitch Perfect's Shelley Ranger, former Glee star Lindsay Pierce, and Matt Sheevely from The Real O'Neills. It also ran in Los Angeles through the month of March, and the adaptations were created by Jordan Ross, who also created musical versions of The OC and Cruel Intentions. I'd love to see a Cruel Intentions musical. That would be amazing. I also would love to see the Jennifer's Body one. So the screenplay itself was actually blacklisted, which doesn't, it's not a bad thing. So let me explain how that works. So one of the hardest steps to making a movie in Hollywood is getting someone else to believe in your dream. You might have the best writers, the best producers, and a great cast in mind, but without the right studio to finance you, there's nowhere to go. Many writers suffer from having their scripts passed from studio to studio with no takers. Though the process itself has become the norm in the movie industry, some members of the inner circle have taken to bringing attention to those exceptionally homeless scripts. The Blacklist prides itself in highlighting some of the best scripts available that have yet to be made. In 2007, the script for Jennifer's Body was included alongside Zombieland, World War Z, and The Wolf of Wall Street. So basically, these blacklisted things are, it's kind of to highlight good films that just haven't had a chance yet. So it's kind of a good thing if you get your film blacklisted. And so this one kind of bums me out is that the sequel was canceled. So before the critics had gone to view the film, plans were in place to build Jennifer's Body into a possible franchise. With its unique premise and confident production team, early talk occurred surrounding a possible sequel. Originally reported by FearNet, the director revealed the film could have a continuation based on the film's original plot. She stated, "We actually just had a very brief exchange about this topic while we were in Toronto. If there was no way to make a sequel that was as fascinating and strange as the first movie, I personally would be interested. Sadly, the harsh criticisms and low box office profits of the original film have nixed the possibility of a sequel." Which, maybe one day someone will give it a chance and we'll finally get a Jennifer's Body sequel. There was actually, though, a Jennifer's Body graphic novel that was about her victims. So besides the sequel, the production team for Jennifer's Body had other plans to expand the universe of the film. One of the ventures included a tie-in comic book for the franchise. In addition, with Atomic Comics creator Rick Spears, Tim Seeley, and Jim Moffat gave more details about the publication. Spears claimed the book is a tie-in, not a direct adaptation of the movie. So in the comic, we take a closer look at some of Jennifer's many victims. We get to meet the guys and see more of their lives before they were ultimately dispatched. And with comics, we can get into the characters' heads in a way that works well in comics and novels, more so in film. So each story followed a different victim and provided their backstory prior to their final consumption. So Adam Brody blames the marketing on the film's failure, which I agree. After the film's lackluster debut, star Adam Brody voiced his concerns about the promotions for the film. As reported by Vulture, he said, "I don't know what happened, and I don't know if anything could have changed anything, or if that was the path it was going down no matter what. I'm happy people are finding it on cable or wherever they're finding it, but I do think it should win a Razzie for worst ad campaign ever. Seriously. It was such a good opportunity for a cool trailer or poster, and it was like Goosebumps R.L. Stein it was like a Goosebumps R.L. Stein poster. In the end, the film, although made to expand on previous notions of male-driven horror stories, was still marketed at a male audience." they had a ton of marketing ideas that I guess were dropped or that they decided not to pursue. So although the film has continued to grow as a cult classic, the production team still have regrets about how the film performed originally in theaters. In a 2006 interview with the New York Times, the director shared how the marketing department wanted Megan Fox to do live chats with amateur adult performance sites, and I was like, I'm begging you not to go to her with this idea. She'll become so dispirited. It was fascinating to have the writer be female and the director be female and the main stars be female, and in my head, the executive be female. And when we got to the top of the mountain, all those male marketing people, it was crushing. Thankfully, fans of the film have discovered the movie thanks to cable broadcasting and DVD releases. So basically, the marketing department was all men, and it was like, how do we get men to watch this? And it's like, but this movie wasn't made for men. And that's where kind of the disconnect, I think, happened, is that, kind of like what we talked about if you listen to my Vincent Price episode of the Peter Pan effect, is that the film industry thought that it was best to market to 19, 20-year-old men. And it's like, but this movie was not made for them. This is not theirs. We need to be marketing to 19 to 20-year-old women, because that's where you would have kind of gotten more of that connection with the audience. And so the reviews even put to that. So of the male movie reviewers, 39% liked it, 61% disliked it. Female movie reviewers, 54% liked it and 46% disliked it. So the criticisms of the movie were different between men and women. Men really focused on how the film failed to be both funny and scary, while the women always spoke about the girl-on-girl friendships, and particularly on showing just how cruel women can be to each other. So unfortunately, the film's success suffered due to the poor marketing and panning by critics overall. So it's they couldn't really decide, it's it's a comedy horror, but they couldn't decide if it was best to market it as a comedy or market it as a horror. It was of course the male marketing team was let's market it to men, but then the guys were well, this isn't scary enough, and I don't really see, it was a mess. And yeah, I really think that with better marketing, this film could have done some crazy things. So then kind of my last fun fact is that the film was named after a Hole song. Jennifer's Body is a song from Hole's 1994 album Live Through This. The song was conceived by Hole frontwoman Courtney Love and drummer Patti Schmill, and written by Love and guitarist Eric Erlandson. As far as anyone can tell, it's about a woman who's abducted, held captive, and eventually killed and dismembered. It may or may not be based on the horrific real-life kidnapping and abuse of Colleen Stan. It's not Hole's only contribution to Jennifer's Body. Their song Violet plays over the revenge sequence at the end of the film. And then kind of, so it could be based on this Colleen Stan event, but then there's also the Elise Poller case, which I'm pretty sure that I'm going to make into a mini-sode and post hopefully soon, maybe this week, fingers crossed. So we've met the cast, we know some fun facts about the film and how marketing failed what would have been an amazing, I think, kind of fresh new run at comedy horror, and especially, making a film for a female audience, I think would have been amazing. But that didn't happen. So the film is now a cult classic and super popular on, DVD, and with its fan base that it has, and us just kind of growing it with friends and newfound people who have not seen the film that we show it to. And I definitely, now that I own it because of this podcast, will definitely be showing it to all the people that I know who haven't seen it yet. And I'll be like, well, we can sit down and watch it right now because I own it, which is super great. But yeah, let's get into a scene-by-scene breakdown. So we open with a view of this blonde woman's back. She's in what looks to be kind of a hospital. She's got a hospital gown on. She's looking out the window, and again, we only see her back. And then she's kind of giving us a narration. And she's talking about how she gets a bunch of letters and she's famous. She's like, I think I get more letters than Dr. Phil and Oprah and Zac Efron and Santa, all put together. We see her taking off her hospital gown. She's got a sports bra on, but we see her taking off her hospital gown, and she's got some scars on her body. And she says that, people tell me they're praying for me. And, she looks at this photo of this boy in her room. And this man comes in and tells her, hey, it's rec time. Rec time started a couple minutes ago. And she's like, I know, I'm on my way. So she's going out to the yard for rec time. So she's in what looks like some kind of jail or possibly mental institution. And she says they're big on recreation here. I think it's to kind of keep us calm and docile and wore out. And then while she's kind of giving us that narration, we get a glance over her chart and we realize that this is our character of Anita Liznicki, or Needy, as pretty much everyone in the film calls her. And it also says that she's having hallucinations and that she's a kicker. K-I-C-K-E-R. Big letters underlined. While she's in the cafeteria, one of the workers comes up to her and suggests that she eat some more food, and Needy decides to kick her onto the table. And this is like a strong kick. Like, this woman goes up in the air and flying. It's pretty wild. Needy's then fighting a couple of guards and is put in solitary confinement. The narration says that she used to be normal. She says that after the killings began, she started feeling loose around the edges, and then she gets into the story of what happened. She's from a small town called Devil's Kettle. It was just named after a waterfall. It's absolutely nothing crazy about the town. And there's this hole, and kind of the falls come down, and then there's this hole that all the water goes into, but no one really knows where it goes. She says the scientists have tried to explore it. They've tossed a bunch of things down there, but nobody knows, like, where all the water comes out. Next, we see a house in the dark, and what seems to be someone walking around outside the house. We see a girl with dark hair is watching TV in bed, and Needy is outside the window watching this girl in her room. Then we learn that Jennifer is the dark-haired girl in bed, and she's looking kind of sick, like her eyes are kind of sunk in. She just looks like she's been up for 5 days. She's got really bad bags around her eyes, her skin's kind of breaking out, she just looks tired. But Needy says that 2 months ago, things were normal and fine. And so then we kind of get this flashback to what we can assume is about 2 months ago. We see that Jennifer was a cheerleader, and Needy's boyfriend Chip was in band. Needy's a nerd, but, Needy and Jennifer have been friends since birth and, have been friends for years. And so while they're at this, like, what I'm guessing is kind of like a pep rally thing, or maybe it's just like a school assembly where the cheerleaders are performing, but Needy, like, really excitedly waves at Jennifer, and Jennifer waves back, and some girl in the audience is like, "Are you two lesbians?" And she's like, "No, like, we're just best friends, like, whatever." It's very interesting. Gotta love high school. Next, Needy and Jennifer are in the school hallway, and they call each other Monistat and Vagisil, which is a very interesting, like, pet name for your friend. But yeah, throughout the film a couple times, Jennifer calls Needy Monistat. She's like, "What's up, Monistat?" And Needy will be like, "Hey, Vagisil." And I'm like, okay. There's some definitely interesting lines in this movie that are quite dated. Like, there's one coming up. Jennifer tells Needy that they're going to go out tonight because a band called Low Shoulder is playing at, like, the local bar in town. And Jennifer, she goes, "Yeah, I saw their MySpace page, and the lead singer is very salty." Which I don't recall salty being, like, a phrase or, like, a term used to describe a guy that you found attractive when I was younger. But this also came out when I was in middle school, I think. So yeah, because that's like when I had MySpace. So yeah, the MySpace thing definitely kind of made me chuckle. So Needy says that she already has plans with Chip, but she does agree to go to the show, and Jennifer's like, "Perfect, I'll pick you up at 8:30, like, wear something cute." Then we see Needy at home, and she's trying to pick out something to wear. She kind of talks about how, that meant something very specific to Jennifer. She's like, "I can't show my cleavage because that's Jennifer's thing, but, like, I should wear something that, like, kind of shows my waist or, like, my midriff." Chip is like, "I'm kind of uncomfortable with what you're wearing," which, like, first of all, Chip, that's none of your business. Like, you don't get to decide what she wears, but, at this time period, I guess. Sure. So he's like, "Your jeans seem really low." Like, he's like, "I can see your womb," which is like, honey, you need to learn more about the female anatomy because that's not how that works. But, okay. And then Chip also says that he tells Needy, like, "You do anything that Jennifer asks. Like, that's not like a good friendship." And Needy's like, "No, like, I don't do anything she asks. We have a lot in common and we like the same things. Otherwise, we wouldn't be BFFs." And so then she holds up, like, this BFF necklace that she has. And then you assume that Jennifer has the other one. And so Needy is kind of also telling Chip about the band, and she mentions that the lead singer is salty, and he goes, "What does that mean?" And so I guess salty means beautiful, which I don't know if that's actually a thing that was real, or if that was just something that they put in the movie. But let's bring it back if it was, and if it wasn't, let's start it up. I'm gonna start calling beautiful things salty. Jennifer shows up, but it's really interesting because we don't hear or see her at first. Like, Needy and Chip are talking on the bed, and Needy just looks at him and goes, "Oh, Jennifer's here." And then we hear Jennifer downstairs be like, "Hurry up, like, I'm here." And he's like, "How do you do that? Like, that's so creepy." So they definitely have this, like, I don't know if it's supposed to be like telepathy, but Needy and Jennifer definitely have a strong connection. I don't know if it's just because they've been friends for so long, but I've only had like one person that I know that I feel like I feel like he can read my mind. I can't read his mind. Maybe sometimes, but yeah, I feel like I've never had a connection like that. Needy and Chip go downstairs so that they can head out. Chip's gonna head back home, and of course Needy's going with Jennifer to the bar. And they kind of get into this like playful shoving game. Like, Jennifer makes an inappropriate joke, and Needy's like, "Oh, you're gross," and kind of like pushes her arm. And so then they kind of start pushing each other, and then Jennifer just like shoves Needy up against the door. Like, it was pretty intense. I was like, okay, that wasn't a game anymore. Jennifer's like, "Okay, cool, like, glad you're ready, let's go to the club." And Chip's like, "It's not a club, it's like a local dive bar, and it's gross." And Jennifer's like, "You're just lame, and you're jealous, and you're just upset that you're not invited." So Needy kind of agrees with Chip over the narration about how, like, the bar was not a club, and it's kind of gross, and they don't have, like, champagne or, you know, a dance floor or anything like that. They have, like, a sticker-covered toilet. You know, like, it's nothing exciting, really, the venue that they're at. So when they first get into the bar, this boy named Craig, who's a football player, tries to hit on Jennifer, and she's kind of like, "Yeah, like, not happening." And then Roman makes his way up and also comes to hit on Jennifer. You can tell that they have more of a relationship, though, and that she'll reference later in the film that they've actually hooked up, and so they have kind of a friends with benefits relationship, I guess maybe is what you'd call it. So the band shows up, they kind of start getting their stuff prepped. Roman makes fun of them, and Jennifer just kind of shuts him down. She's like, "You wish that you looked that cool and, you know, had like something interesting about you." Jennifer decides to go chat with the band, and Needy's worried. She's like, we don't need to go talk to them, like, it's fine." And Jennifer has this really great, like, line or kind of interaction with Needy where she's like, "We have all the power, and if you just point your boobs in the right direction, shit gets done." And so just like, she's very, very empowered, which I don't think is a bad thing. I know some people you know, have kind of negative connotations about Jennifer, and I'm not saying that she's the best person, but I am saying that she's very empowered, and I think that's definitely really cool. And it's cool to see kind of Needy's character transition when she starts feeling kind of empowered. It's just good to see. So Jennifer goes up and talks with the band, and she's kind of flirting with the lead singer that she likes and offers to get them drinks. And so while Jennifer goes up to the bar to flirt with the bartender to get some alcohol, Needy overhears the band talking about how they think Jennifer's perfect because they bet she's a virgin. And so Needy, of course, doesn't really know what they're talking about, but she goes up and she's like, "Knock it off, like, that's my best friend, and who cares if she's a virgin, because it's better than sleeping with lame guys like you." So Jennifer's on her way back with the drinks, and Needy's like, "You know what? Let's get out of here. These guys are terrible. Like, we don't need to be here. Let's just leave." The band starts playing, and Jennifer is immediately focused on the band and what's going on. She grabs Needy's hand, and Needy just, like, there's this moment where you can tell she gets excited that Jennifer grabs her hand, and she kind of just looks at her lovingly. And then you realize that Jennifer is just fixated on this lead singer and is not even paying attention. And so then Needy just kind of like backs out of it and lets go of her hand and just kind of pulls herself from whatever idea. Like, I don't know what to say if it's a fantasy, but whatever, like, hope that she had felt in that moment. You can read a lot in her face when Jennifer grabs her hand. So about 30 seconds into the first song, Needy notices that a fire has started. And once the fire spreads, people start freaking out. They're unable to get out of the bar. Needy drags Jennifer into the bathroom, and they're able to escape through a window. And Jennifer's totally in shock. She's like kind of collapsed on the ground on her knees. She's not talking. She's just staring off into one direction. And Needy's facing the bar. So Jennifer's facing like her with her back to the bar, and Needy's facing Jennifer looking toward the bar. So Needy's seeing people run out of the bar on fire, And then the lead singer comes up out of nowhere with a drink in his hand, looking totally casual, and he's like, I'm so happy that you guys are okay. I've been looking everywhere for you. He's like, we should go someplace safe and familiar, and for me, that's my van. So let's go to my van. And Needy's like, no, we're not gonna go to your creepy van. Like, we don't even know you. And Jennifer's like, no, let's go check out his van. Jennifer wants to go with them. Needy tries to talk her out of it, but Jennifer goes anyway. So Needy watches her get put in this van, and then the doors close. And at that moment, while they get ready to drive away, you know, Jennifer and the band get ready to drive away, the bar explodes behind Needy. Needy has this great line where she says she knew this would be bad. The singer reminded her of a creepy petrified tree she once saw as a child, which I just think is a great, like, I don't know, I just loved the visual and the idea that, like, he was really thin and creepy like a dead tree, and I didn't like it. So she gets home and she calls Chip and she's freaking out. Chip's asleep, and so of course he doesn't know, like, what's going on. And so she's telling him about the fire, she's telling him about Jennifer and all of that stuff. And he's like, well, you know, because she's basically saying, like, we need to go find her. Like, I don't know where they took her, we need to go find her. And he's like, well, did you get a make and model of the van? And she goes, I don't know, Chip, an 89 rapist? Which is just like, it's like, okay, there's no time for sassy jokes. Like, I get it, but also there's really good writing in this film. I love it. So while she's on the phone with Chip, her doorbell rings. She goes to look, and she originally doesn't see anything, but then she goes to her, like, kitchen, and the faucet is dripping. So she goes, she turns off the tap, and she turns around, and Jennifer is standing right behind her in her kitchen, covered in blood, looking like a monster. Just rough. She's not talking, but she's just smiling, and it's like this really creepy, like, empty smile. She goes to the fridge and starts ravenously eating a rotisserie chicken, and Needy's like, what happened to you? Like, what's going on? And this is when Jennifer has that scene where she throws up all this black sludge, like, all over Needy's kitchen. The sludge then starts moving, and it's kind of spiky. Kind of reminds me of, like, the Venom goo, because it, like, moves on its own. It is really weird. So Needy's gonna call for help, and Jennifer pushes her up against the wall and is kind of acting like she's almost gonna attack her. She asks Needy if she's scared, and Needy answers yes. And then Jennifer almost looks like she's gonna bite her neck, think like vampire style, like she's right there with, like, her lips kind of on her neck, but then she pulls away at the last second and leaves the house. So the next day at school, everyone is grieving and people are having a hard time, you know, very, very validly. Except for Jessica. She comes to school glowing and looking amazing and feeling like people should just move on. And then people who weren't at the bar, of course, you know, it's a small town, so rumors start circulating about what happened. Needy has a flashback of playing with Jennifer when they were both really young, like under 10. And Needy's really concerned about how Jennifer's acting. She's like, she's just acting like she doesn't care. And then we see a flashback of Needy trying to clean the black sludge off of the floor. She, like, shows Jennifer her dark stained hands and, like, fingernails, and Jennifer's like, that's disgusting, you did a manicure. So this is when we first see J.K. Simmons' character comes in. So he's, you know, of course, the science teacher. He comes in and he's talking with his students about the fire and kind of what happened. He tries to be motivating, but he's just, like, odd. Needy's trying to get through her day, and everyone's crying. You know, it's like, why did they have school? Like, Chip and Needy are talking, and she says that, you know, it's hard around town when even one person dies, and they had, you know, at least 10 people die in one event. And so it's like, why did they have school that day? Needy then tells Chip about Jennifer coming over and, like, how she looked and kind of what happened. And Chip's like, she probably just inhaled a bunch of smoke. Like, maybe she should talk with the guidance counselor because there's a lot going on. And he just wants her to be okay. Like, he's trying to be encouraging, but he's also like, okay, I don't think Jennifer's a monster, you know, like a monster. She says that she's not crazy, and as they're going to leave, her friend Colin comes up to chat with Needy. He's like, I heard that you were at the fire, like, in the fire last night. I'm really happy that you're okay and you're still alive. And Colin, like I mentioned in the fun facts, is this, or in the cast breakdown, is this, like, textbook 2000s emo kid, and I love him so much. He's got the lip ring and the nail polish and, like, all the bracelets and the black messy hair. He's just chef's kiss. I love him so much. He was what I wanted for a boyfriend so bad when I was younger. I was like, I just want that so bad. I thought he was so cute. So when Colin like kind of, goes on his way, Chip's like, how do you guys know each other? And Edie's like, oh, we took like a creative writing class together. He's really talented. And so you can tell that Chip gets a little bit jealous, that Colin was so, I don't want to say interested, like I think he was honestly just trying to be nice, but you could tell there was a little underlying like flirtiness there of like, I'm really happy that you're okay. And I was like, I bet you are, Colin. I bet you are. So after school, Jennifer takes one of the football players, Jonas, into the woods behind the school to kind of hook up because he's grieving about the friend who was originally hitting on her at the bar in the Letterman's jacket. His name was Craig. He ended up dying in the fire. So once in the woods, they're like kissing, and all these animals start showing up, like fox and deer and a raccoon, and they're just watching them. And Jonas is really confused, and Jennifer starts taking her clothes off and tells Jonas that he's going to see Craig again, and it's all okay. And he's like, what do you mean, like one day in heaven? And she's like, no, that's not what I meant. And then she attacks him and eats part of him. You see Jennifer's face get all like creepy, and her mouth opens really big, and she's got these like giant large teeth. And the science teacher is actually getting into his car and hears Jonas screaming. And at first he's like, yeah, it's okay. Just let it out. Like, it's going to be fine. And then after he hears the screaming a couple more times, you can tell he's kind of like, well, maybe this isn't just like grief, like yelling. Maybe this is something else. And so he actually goes into the woods to investigate what's going on. So while he goes to investigate, Needy's at her house, and she's kind of cooking some food, like a little snack or whatever. The radio's on, and they're actually interviewing Low Shoulder about the fire. The radio says that they helped people get out of the bar during the fire, which is clearly a lie. At this point, the science teacher's walking into the woods, and he finds Jonas with his insides on the outside. Never a good thing to see. Back at Needy's house, she's talking with her mom, and her mom's telling Needy about a nightmare that she had, that Needy was actually being murdered by a group of people, and they were all trying to like nail her to a tree. It felt very like Salem witch trial-y type thing, which I think kind of relates to the whole Jennifer's body type thing in a way. Back at the school, or kind of like the wooded area behind the school, they're taking Jonas's body out of the woods, and his parents are there crying and grieving. Of course, their son was just horrifically cannibalized and murdered. It's very interesting because the scene is supposed to be sad, but then there's this very dark comedy in it where like one of the police officers tells Jonas's father, like, we're gonna get the guy who did this, and he's like screaming into the air like, I'm gonna find you and I'm gonna take your nuts and hang them on my door, and they're gonna be like a fancy door knocker like rich people have. And he's just like screaming this out to the world, and it's like, okay, sir, like, we all grieve differently, but that's a very descriptive, specific idea that you got going on in your head. It's very interesting. Now, where is Jennifer in all of this? Jennifer has decided to go for a swim. She's swimming naked in what appears to be a lake. It could be a river, but it feels very lake-ish. She gets out at the dock, and she just looks powerful in this scene. Like her just swimming effortlessly, and her skin is all glowy. And I love how they filmed this scene specifically because she gets out of the water, and of course, like, she's, her body heat is warmer than the cold lake water, and so there's this steam coming off of her body. She just looks like a badass. It's so good. And she just like puts her clothes on, and her hair's dripping wet, and she just like walks away into the woods. Just as mysterious as she appeared, she is gone. Later that night, Jennifer calls Needy and is talking about how good she's feeling. She's like, I look great, I feel great, I am a god. And Needy's like, that's good for you, I'm still feeling crappy and like depressed about all the people that died. And Jennifer's like, look, you need to move on. And while they're on the phone, Chip also calls Needy and is like, I need to see you as soon as possible. Something happened. And then we get this iconic scene, which I think is like a pretty common gif from this movie, where Jennifer is burning her tongue with a lighter, and then you like watch it heal. It's a very interesting scene. So Needy gets off the phone with Chip and tells Jennifer that she's got to go meet Chip, and Jennifer makes this comment about like Chip's looking really good, and then she starts asking inappropriate questions about like them having sex and all of this stuff, and Needy's just like, yeah, I gotta go, bye. So Needy gets off the phone and goes to meet Chip at the park, and he tells her what happened to Jonas, because I guess Jonas and his family are Chip's neighbors. Needy says this is like a terrible coincidence. Like now, there's a terrible fire and now there's this like cannibalistic murderer in town, like who kills, the biggest guy in town, like this large football player. What the heck's going on? And then we kind of get another Needy narration. She's saying that the following days were really hard and most people were numb. The town gained a lot of notoriety, and the Low Shoulder song Through the Trees that they played at the bar has kind of become the town's anthem, which kind of sucks when they're bad people. And she says that people are trying to move on and the town was trying to heal. The science teacher is giving another chat, and it's now been 1 month since the fire, and he also mentions that Low Shoulder has decided they'll be donating 3% from their single Through the Trees to the families in Devil's Kettle who were affected by the fire, and then the Jonas's family as well. And Needy says that that's kind of crass. She's like, what about the other 97%? Like, one song? Like, not even the full album. You're donating 3% from one song? Like, is that really gonna do anything? Needy's like, and they never even helped anyone. At this point, Jennifer's sitting next to her in class, and she's looking sick. Like, just super pale, super sickly, face kind of hollowed looking. Jennifer tells Needy after class that she feels like crap, and Needy's like, are you PMSing? And then Jennifer has this great moment where she's like, PMS isn't real, Needy, it's just misogynistic propaganda to make women seem crazy, which I think is such an overlooked line in the film, and it's one of my favorites. And then Jennifer kind of makes this comment. She's like, it must just be wearing off or something. And Needy's like, what's wearing off? What are you talking about? And at this moment, Colin comes up and is kind of chatting with them. And he ends up asking Jennifer out on a date. And at first she's like, no. And because he makes the comment, it's such a great, oh, I love this moment as well. He goes, well, they're playing Rocky Horror at the Bijou in town. And she's like, I don't like boxing movies. And he's like, it's not a fucking boxing movie. Okay, never mind. And so then he just totally gets like let down and walks away. It gets me every time. And then Needy is like, I think Colin's really cool. Like, he's a really nice guy. You should give him a chance. Like, why not? And so Jennifer says, oh, okay, fine. So she goes up to Colin and is like, why don't you come and watch a movie at my house? I just got Aquamarine on DVD. It's about this girl who turns into a mermaid. And he's like, okay, sure. Like, you can tell he's really excited because he gets to hang out with Jennifer. And she's like, yeah, I'll text you the address later and we'll hang out. And he's like, okay. And then at that moment, Chip and Needy are also making plans for that night. So now it's the evening and Chip and Needy are at Chip's house. They're getting ready to have sex. Meanwhile, Colin is on his way to meet Jennifer. He's listening to this beautiful pop punk version of I Can See Clearly Now the Rain Is Gone. It goes hard. I definitely listened to it on the soundtrack after watching the movie when I was driving the other day, and it's, 10 out of 10. Love that. I miss pop punk and the scene when I was in middle and high school, because we had some good music during those times. Some good fucking music. So Colin's clearly very excited for his date. He's smiling, he's singing along, he's kind of dancing a little bit, and he's driving through this neighborhood that's all lit up, looks totally normal, and then when he turns down the next street, everything's dark, like no street lights, no house lights, no cars. He pulls up to this house, and it's all fenced off, but there's clearly a light on upstairs. And his car, like I said, is the only one on the whole street. He knocks on the door, and the house looks totally abandoned. He goes around and actually has to climb in through a window, but I'm like, he didn't try to call her, he didn't try to text her, like, maybe try to call her and say, hey, I'm here, like, am I at the right place? But he just, like, climbs through a window. He starts looking for Jennifer, and then he hears music, so he kind of follows that through the house and, like, up the stairs. As he's going up the stairs, there's a pretty good jump scare of a bird. Always birds in abandoned houses. The typical trope. I Wanna Love You by Akon is playing, which I was also really excited to hear. I mean, like, two great musical choices back to back. I Can See Clearly Now the Rain Is Gone in pop punk, and then Akon's I Wanna Love You is playing. It just, whoever decided those was a genius. So Colin finds the room, and there's a bunch of candles, but clearly the house is under construction because there's, like, plastic everywhere and no drywall. It's just, like, bare bones. In the upstairs, at least. Jennifer shows up behind him, And Colin's like, this isn't really your house, is it? And she says, no, like, it's our house just for you and me. And she's trying to be all, like, flirty and sexy. And she comes onto Colin really strong. And he's, like, a bit hesitant at first. And he's like, look, do you, like, what's going on? Like, you don't even know my last name. And she was like, I've been sending you signals all year. Like, I want you so bad. She starts kissing him. And he relaxes a little bit, as one would. But then he gets a little startled again when rats start running around, which I feel like is valid. And so while Colin and Jennifer seem to be getting ready to have sex, Chip and Needy actually are having sex. Jennifer pulls away from Colin and she like gives him this look, and at that point her eyes change and you can see that it's like very like not human looking, and you can see in his face that he knows that she's something other than human and that he's pretty much a goner. Like, he just looks terrified and like defeated. Like, he's like, he just looks like, why even put up a fight? He just goes, oh no, and just slowly starts backing away. He accidentally stabs himself on what I think is a nail gun, but like I couldn't really tell in the film. But he stabs himself on something, and Jennifer grabs his arm and starts breaking his bones. So you just hear these like cracking noises, and he's screaming, and she's like getting off on it. She's so happy. She's getting so much joy out of his pain, and she's like, I need you frightened. So I mentioned earlier in the podcast that Needy and Jennifer have this like telepathic connection. So while Needy is having sex with Chip, she sees blood on the ceiling, and at one point even sees this like demonic version of Jennifer and a dead version of Jonas in the room with him, and she kind of freaks out and starts like kind of screaming / breathing heavy, not like loud screaming, but like panicked screaming. And poor Chip just thinks that he's doing a good job in the sex department, and it's an awkward situation. Back to Jennifer. She has Colin on the ground and tells him that she also needs him hopeless. And then there's this absolutely lovely shot. We see her shadow turn into this monster and start eating him. She's like tearing out his stomach with her teeth while he's still alive. It's a great scene because it's just the shadows. Like, we don't see any of this happening, but like every time she like pulls her head back and like rips into him, you just like see the blood go everywhere. It's a really cool shot with just the shadows. Whoever thought of that was, yeah, I absolutely loved it. I'm guessing it was Karen, but it was great. So Needy is like under Chip, and she just kind of keeps repeating the word hopeless, and then she starts screaming, like kind of for real this time. So Chip stops and he tries to check in with her. It's so awkward because he goes, oh my god, am I hurting you? Oh my god, am I too big? And then he just gets this like smile on his face, like he's a bit too proud about that idea. And it's like, sir, no, none of that. You're not even close to what's actually happening. So Needy kind of freaks out and she leaves. She's almost in tears, and we cut back to Jennifer, and she's drinking blood out of Colin's stomach with like scooping it in her hands like you would in, you know, like a survival movie when they've been walking for miles and they finally get to the river and they're just like scooping water. That she's scooping blood out of Colin's stomach. It's, yeah, again, a solid scene. Needy gets in her car, and through the trees that the Low Shoulder song is playing, and she like yells and turns it off and like speeds home. While she's driving, she comes across a bloody Jennifer, and she like swerves out of the way, and then she like stops the car and is looking around and looking out the back window and her windows and the other windows, and then Jennifer jumps on her car, breaking the front window, looking totally messed up, covered in blood, like that kind of like dead behind the eyes look, how she was when she first showed up after the fire and she was covered in blood. So Needy gets home and is yelling for her mom, but her mom must be at work because she's home alone. Needy tries to go up to bed, and when she gets in, she closes her eyes, which like first she gets in with jeans on, which I'm like, who can sleep in jeans? But I'll let it slide. So she gets into bed, closes her eyes, and then something next to her moves, and Jennifer just sits up and goes, hi, and Needy screams, which is fair, because who's randomly just going to be in your bed? Like, that's not a thing. And Jennifer's like, Jesus Christ, Needy, like, stop screaming, knock it off. And she's totally back to normal. She's not bloody at all. She's in different clothes. And Needy's like, you need to get out. Like, I can't do this. And Jennifer's like, no, like, I want to have a sleepover. And Jennifer's being all nice and really affectionate. She's like running her fingers through Needy's hair, and she's being very touchy. And this leads to them making out, which probably would have led to sex if Needy didn't come back to reality and pull away. So they're like having their moment, whatever. You know, it's the scene that people thought was like a publicity stunt. And I guess in the script, they actually were going to do like a full sex scene and then decided not to. They were just going to do the makeout scene. So Needy kind of like snaps back to reality and pulls away, and she's freaking out. And she's like, I saw you. Like, I just saw you covered. Like, and she's like stuttering. And Jennifer's like, calm down. Like, everything's fine. And so Jennifer finally says, like, I want to tell you what's going on. Like, no secrets. So she finally tells Needy about what happened the night the band took her. So they took her out to the falls and basically sacrificed her to Satan in order to help their band make it big. The guys ask to make sure she's a virgin, and she says she is, even though that's a lie. They tied her up, they stabbed her many times with a Bowie knife, and they kill her while they sing 8675309. So Needy's pretty much in tears, and Jennifer's like, it should have killed me, but it didn't for some reason. And then Jennifer's like, yeah, when I woke up, like, I don't really remember. I just remember that, like, I found my way back to you. She's like, I don't remember a lot from that night. I knew that I couldn't hurt you, so I just left. And after I left your house, I ran into someone from the bar who made it out of the fire, but nobody knew that they had made it out of the fire. So I killed him and I ate him. And then Jennifer explains to Needy that when she's full, like she is right now, she's kind of like unkillable. And then she takes this pen and like stabs it into her arm and like cuts herself with it. And they watch it heal really quickly. And Needy starts asking questions, and Jennifer kind of tries to gaslight her of like, you know, I'm really worried about you. Like, maybe you should talk to someone. Like, you're not making any sense. And Needy's like, you need to leave. Like, I can't. Like, you need to go home. And so Jennifer puts sweatpants on and jumps out the window to go home. So next we see Colin's funeral, and his like emo/scene friends are kind of putting on a show and like upstaging the whole thing. It's really awkward. His mom yells at them and says that she had to identify the body and that he looked like lasagna with teeth. She says that he was eaten by a cannibal, and she's upset, which, I mean, I feel like is very fair. A lot of people showed up for him, though. Like, Needy did as well. Needy was at his funeral, and there's, like, a whole, you know, it looks like it's family on one side, and then the other side, there's just, like, all of these, like, scene emo kids, which I loved. That Colin had, like, a lot of friends and support. So Needy's narrating and says that sadly no one really cared much about Colin dying at school. There was too much sorrow and people really couldn't handle any more of it. We see people hanging a banner for the spring formal. Needy's in the library trying to find out what could have happened to Jennifer. And Needy says that she hasn't even talked to Jennifer since that night in her room. Chip comes up to her, and she's in like a beanie and a jacket and just looking kind of depressed. Like, Needy's not having a good time. And Chip's like, hey, I just bought us tickets to, like, the spring formal or the spring dance. You know, were you able to make reservations at, I think it's the Cheesecake Factory? And she's like, I can't go to the dance with you. And so she tells Chip everything that Jennifer told her. She's like, I was doing some reading in our library's occult section. And Chip's like, our library has an occult section? Like, what are you talking about? And she's like, I think the ritual went wrong because she wasn't a virgin, and Jennifer came back as some sort of succubus, someone who preys on men, even though a succubus typically in, like, folklore doesn't eat men, but they do prey on men, so it's an interesting one. They prey on them in their sleep, but they don't, like, kill them and eat them typically, or, like eat them to stay strong type of a thing. So Chip doesn't really believe her, but he's worried about Needy. He's like, you know, I just want you to be okay. And Needy's like, well, I'm going to be at the dance because I need to watch Jennifer because I think that she's going to attack a bunch of guys at the dance. And she asks Chip not to go. But later that night, we see Chip getting ready for the dance, or whenever the day of the dance is when kind of is the next scene. So Chip's getting ready for the dance, and his mom comes in and she gives him pepper spray. Jennifer's weak again. Her hair's kind of falling out. She's looking a little bit more pale, a little bit more hollow. Needy's wearing this, like, 80s style magenta prom dress, and her hair is also, like, big 80s, like, wild. It's great. Chip's walking to the dance through the park, and Jennifer's following him. Needy's already at the dance looking for Jennifer, but she's now caught up to Chip and is talking with him. And so she tells him that Jennifer ends up telling Chip that Needy and Colin were hooking up, and she can't stand the way that Needy's been treating him, and that she's always had a soft spot for him. So at the dance, Needy's still waiting for Jennifer, and the band Low Shoulders shows up and has offered to play at the dance free of charge. While they perform that Through the Trees song, Needy realizes that Jennifer is going after Chip. She has that weird telepathy thing again, and she feels Jennifer and Chip kissing, which they were. They were in the park making out. Needy takes off and goes to Chip's house. His mom said that he walked to the dance and normally cut through the park, which it's interesting because his mom is like, you need to take the pepper spray because someone is murdering and eating young boys, but then she allows him to walk the 5 blocks to school. Because when Needy's like, he walked, and she goes, it's only 5 blocks. And I was like, yeah, and there's a murderer on the loose. Like, what do you mean it's only 5 blocks? So Needy takes off and goes to find him. Jennifer's taking Chip to this abandoned swimming pool to go make out / hook up or whatever, her plan is to eat him, essentially. I'm sure is the main idea, but she can't tell Chip that technically. So they get to the pool and they're kind of sitting and talking, and the pool's overgrown. There's all these plants inside and plants up the wall, and there's spray paint. The water looks disgusting. The pool's I don't want to say, it looks like it's maybe half filled. And Jennifer asks Chip to kiss her again, and he's like, look, I can't, this feels weird, this isn't right. And Jennifer gets angry and throws him in the pool and goes in as well to kill him. And Jennifer's in this white and black dress, so it's kind of like a wedding dress, think strapless A-line wedding dress with black lace on the tiers. So there's a couple tiers in the bottom layer of the dress, and there's black lace around it. It's actually kind of a pretty dress. It's definitely a little bit better than the 80s style that Needy has going on. So she jumps in the pool after him to kill him. While Jennifer is trying to drown Chip, Needy's running to find him. She finds the orchid corsage that he bought her on the ground and then hears him calling for help. Needy climbs in through a window and finds Jennifer sucking Chip's blood in the pool. Again, kind of total vampire style, probably what she wanted to do to Needy when she first saw her after she was sacrificed to Satan. And we also get a great view of her demon face in this moment, which we don't really see a whole lot. We see very, very briefly with Jonas, and then of course the other kill that we see with Colin is just shadows. So we get a really great view with all of her teeth, and it's really creepy, but it's awesome. Needy dives in the pool to pull Jennifer off of Chip. Needy pushes Jennifer under the water, and Chip's looking really pale and confused, he's not looking well. Chip ends up giving Needy the pepper spray, and Needy uses it when Jennifer comes out of the water at them. And even though she didn't get a lot from Chip, it doesn't look like originally. She's definitely stronger than she was earlier in the night. And after Needy sprays Jennifer with the pepper spray, Jennifer ends up throwing up that black goo stuff and then hovers out of the pool. And Chip goes, oh my god, she's flying. And Needy's like, she's hovering. It's not that impressive. Needy and Jennifer kind of exchange words, and Needy's saying that Jennifer is irrelevant and insecure. And Jennifer's like, I'm going to eat your soul. Because Jennifer's really mad that Needy's saying all of these things. And she's like, I thought you only ate boys. And Jennifer just goes, no, I go both ways. And as she's walking toward Needy, Chip impales Jennifer with a giant pool skimmer right through the stomach. Jennifer, and then he kind of collapses more on the ground. Jennifer pulls out, the pool skimmer, and she looks at Needy and she goes, you got a tampon? And Needy goes, no. She's like, I thought you might be plug-in. And then she just leaves. It's a very interesting line, but I get why they did it the way they did it. Anyway, so Needy tries to help Chip, but by this point he's lost a lot of blood. And he actually tells her, I think that I died before you got here, but I woke up when I heard your voice. Which is lame, but kind of cute. They exchange I love yous, and he dies. R.I.P. Chip. Needy is left in this abandoned pool crying over his body, and we cut to her at home, in bed, covered in muck from the pool, and kind of looking like she's got a dress on. Her hair is like a rat's nest. It's not good. And she's just laying there defeated looking. I mean, she just saw her boyfriend get murdered by her best friend. And yeah, it's not good. She changes and is ready to go see Jennifer and like basically go after Jennifer. Jennifer's at home in bed, and this is that scene at the start of the movie when we see like, okay, so this is someone's house, and then we see this dark-haired girl in bed, and then Needy's outside the window. So this is where the movie kind of started, what we saw anyway. So Jennifer's going through her yearbook looking for boys to eat. She's like putting like hearts around their faces, and then like writing yum and like all this other stuff. And Needy jumps through the window as Jennifer is trying to fall asleep, and they fight. Jennifer bites her, and Needy brought a box cutter to kill her, which is an interesting choice of weapon. Jennifer again levitates or hovers off the bed, and they're kind of fighting in the air, like twisting around, and Needy grabs Jennifer's BFF necklace and pulls it off, and it kind of like symbolically breaks their connection, and Jennifer falls onto the bed, and they kind of like disconnect from each other, and Needy's able to stab Jennifer in the heart, like a lot of the articles that she found in the library said to do. Jennifer dies, and then her mom walks in the room because, of course, she heard all of this commotion going on. So her mom walks in the room to find Needy on top of Jennifer with a box cutter in her heart. Needy collapses on the bed next to Jennifer, and next we see her back in solitary, and Needy is narrating again, explaining that what the articles and the scholars don't know is that if you're bitten by a demon and live, you may gain some of the demon's powers. Needy breaks out of jail and comes across this little pool of water where the Devil's Kettle pit lets out. She finds like there's like all these like tennis balls, and then she finds the Bowie knife that Low Shoulder used on Jennifer. She starts hitchhiking her way to the city, and the credits start rolling. This older gentleman picks her up, and he's like, oh, like, where are you going? And she's like, oh, I'm following a rock band. And he's like, wow, like, it must be some band. And she's like, yeah, well, this is their last show. And as they're driving away, we see the credits start rolling. However, as the credits start, we see images and video of Low Shoulder being super popular and having all these screaming, adoring fans outside of their hotel. Once inside, we see footage of them destroying the room and doing drugs, and then someone knocks on the door. Nikolai says it's probably room service and asks, one of the other band members to go get the door. And after that, the photos turn into crime scene photos. The whole band was murdered, and Needy was the one to kill them. The footage itself ends with hotel hallway video of her walking away from their room, and the official credits start rolling. And that is the end of Jennifer's Body. I absolutely love this movie. I hadn't seen it in a good couple of years before watching it again for the podcast, and I'm so happy I did, and I'm so happy I own it now. Like, I never thought that it would be one that I wanted, but I ended up buying it for the podcast, and I'm so happy I did because now I can watch it all the time. I feel like there's definitely, it's just a great, like, there are good comedy moments in it. I love the older references that, kids nowadays probably wouldn't get with, the MySpace and all of that stuff, and there's just interesting language, and I think definitely could be a really cool discussion for some type of film class or whatever at a college or university. But yeah, if you liked today's episode, please give us a like and a follow on Apple Podcast or Spotify. I guess it's super helpful if you do it on Apple, but this is just kind of a hobby of mine, so I'm not super worried about that. But if you like it, that would be very kind of you to give me a nice rating. I would appreciate it. And if you want to know kind of what's going on socials, where I typically post about the episodes, and then I'm a little bit more active on Twitter than Instagram, I'm not going to lie. But the podcast is on social media under M Murder Movies. So that's M as in Massacre, Murder Movies on Instagram and Twitter. I hope that you have a lovely week or weekend whenever you're listening to this, and remember,